Hello, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Wright Experience. Before we begin tonight's show, I'd like to take an opportunity to pause for a moment of silence in memory of my mother-in-law, Mrs. Doretha B. Barnes, who passed away last week at the age of 85. Thank you for joining me in that moment of silence. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright, Jr., the founder and host of this show. I'm absolutely excited about the opportunity to bring tonight's guest to you. We have another veteran superintendent in the state of North Carolina who has the uniqueness of having served her entire educational career in one county, and that is rare these days, particularly. She's done some amazing work, and we'd like to talk to you about her. My guest tonight is Dr. Lisa F. Jackson, and she has worked in Pamlico County, North Carolina for many, many years. She taught at a middle school for 11 years. She also was a community college department chair of education for 6 years. School community relations director. She served as an assistant principal and the principal of Pamlico Middle School, as well as Pamlico County High School. And then for the last 7 years, she served as a proud superintendent of Pamlico County Schools. And she has a total of about 34 years in education. And she has 3 degrees from East Carolina University, a Bachelor of Science in Early Childhood Education, a master's in reading from East Carolina, and also a master's in educational administration from East Carolina University. So we're certainly excited tonight to have her as our guest and look forward to talking to her and learning more about her amazing leadership over there in Pamlico County, North Carolina. And so at this time, I'd like to bring aboard and welcome to the Wright Experience, Lisa Jackson. Hello there.
Hey, Dr. Wright. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here on the Wright Experience, and we're looking forward to tapping into your wealth of knowledge and all that wonderful work that's going on in Pamlico County, and certainly proud of that work that you continue to do to benefit the citizens of Pamlico County and, of course, those students that you serve every day.
Thank you.
So start off by telling us about your district and some of the wonderful things that you have going on there now.
Well, we'd like to say that Pamlico County is the best kept secret in Eastern North Carolina, all the way on the East Coast. And we have 4 schools. We're a small district, about 1,200 students, and 1 primary school, 1 elementary, 1 middle, and 1 high. And yes, I have pretty much touched in all those schools in the almost 34 years that I've been in Pamlico County, to include the community college, like you said. But it's a small district, which is what I think makes it big and powerful and wonderful, to be honest. And we're very successful in, just in our academics, in our relationship building, in our trust, just all of those things. And right now, I think when I hear from people around the state, it's mostly about, how our signing bonus, we've got, as I'm sure we'll talk about later, there is such a shortage of good quality teachers out there. And we had a very generous donor to offer up some money for us. And so we're giving a $12,000 signing bonus for hard to fill areas. And, for us right now, that was math and EC, which we've pretty much secured, those at this time. But we're really fortunate in that, when people, we say, cross the bridge from the other county and come into Pamlico County, they stay. And that's one of the beauties, I think, of our district, is that if you go on our website right now and look at the vacancies that we have, there's not very many at all. 2 of them actually came today, where 2 people are moving back home, obviously too far for them to drive, but we don't have very many vacancies. And I think in this time right now of, post-COVID, I hope, and with, the shortage, we've got to do everything we can to keep our teachers happy and to give them as much support as we can. But I've one of the things I think I've done really well in Pamlico County is to hire really good people that are way smarter than I am and make me look good every single day, and some amazing administrators. And I know when I do decide to retire and ride off into the sunset, that I'm going to be leaving the school district in really good hands.
So you've just alluded to one of the key tenets of good leadership is the hiring the right people and allow them to do the work that you've hired them to do.
So important. You can't micromanage.
That's right.
I don't know, in a certain vein, we have to a little, just to make, especially last year, I can't even believe I'm saying this and that we lived through it, but last year I had a brand new principal at every single one of my schools. And that was a lot of work, and I didn't know what I didn't know, and certainly they didn't, and it was a lot of work. But what we did was just provide them with a lot of support to help them, so that if they did make mistakes, that they could get right back up and keep going. Because the bottom line, everything we do every single day, to include this this show of yours, is about helping children. Because if something I say helps somebody else to be a better leader, it's going to be all about children, and that's just, it's got to be. So anyway, I forgot what you asked me now.
That's okay, but that's certainly that is absolutely the purpose of this show, is to try to make us all better as leaders and move forward. So speaking of teacher recruitment and retention, other than giving folks a $12,000 signing bonus, what are some other things that you think that we can do better? Because that's that is certainly a wonderful thing, but until we, I'll just talk about for me, until we get these salaries up,
that's right,
for everybody before the signing bonuses, I think we're going to
and I won't say obviously, but I wasn't using this as a platform for recruiting for Pamlico County Schools, because like I said, we filled those positions now, but it has to be important to everybody, not just me, not just the principals, not just the board. It has to be important to the community. It has to be important to our commissioners when we go to them and ask them for money or additional funds, for new buildings, or for increased teacher supplements, or for resources for our children. Because as you know, we're not the only show in town. We've got private schools, we've got charter schools, and we've got to be the best show in town. I mean, not really just a show, but we've got to be the best for these kids. And so everybody has to want that. But then once we get them there, it's important for them to feel, I think trust is probably one of the biggest things. Your folks, your teachers, your administrators, they have to trust you. And I think it was Freddie, Williamson, that said relationships matter. That is, and I know that might start sounding kind of like frou-frou, but it's the truth. Relationships 100% with the parents, with the community, with the teachers, and I'm in a small district. So, I can go in classrooms and I can be in the schools every single day. I will say COVID made that really, really hard, and not just because of proximity. It just made our jobs very different. Sure. I think that is good for our teachers. If they choose to work in a small district, I think it's because they are missing something in a larger district. And so for me, I'm proud of that I can be in the classrooms and be there, and a teacher can tell me something they need. And it's just different. And I get it, in a big district, I wouldn't be able to do that. But it's hard right now. COVID, and not just COVID, Southeastern North Carolina, as well as, other counties too. But, we've dealt with a lot of crises, not just COVID, but just prior to that, we were getting over a hurricane. So, our kids in, I think it's fifth or sixth grade, rising fifth or sixth graders, have never known a normal school year. And so, I've gone through 2 floods since I started in administration. And but the middle school, when I was principal, I had been principal for a half a day, and they closed school because of a hurricane coming through. The school flooded, and we were closed almost the entire year.
I had forgotten that until you mentioned it. That's right.
Yeah. And so I say that to say, then some of those same teachers were there when we went through the next hurricane, and they have told me, I can't do this again. But it's it is, because I'm telling you, if you've never been through a flood, it's something when you're, I mean, and we have people doing this at home as well as doing it at school, children and teachers, where you're going through all of your belongings and they're ruined, they're moldy, they're, so just sopping wet, whatever. But it's that relationship piece where we could help each other. And that's why I haven't lost a lot of people now because of that. I mentioned this at our retreat we had earlier this week. I had some teachers, some veteran teachers that were there when I was principal at that school more than 10 years ago that met with me in January. And they said, we appreciate you. We appreciate this county, but we're probably not going to be here next year. And this is a small middle school. So 3 teachers is a big deal.
Big deal.
3 veteran teachers. And I said, what can we do? And they said, there really is nothing you can do because it's about the apathy and it's about we're tired. And this was in early January. I said, you guys just had a 2-week break. And they said, and as soon as we came back, we just start. So we went in and really, I had just put a new principal in there, like I said, and I don't know. We just started really focusing on the people and making sure that, because, the teachers have got to be able to do their work. And I almost want to say less is more, because if you keep piling things on and on and on as administrators, I mean, we know we're going to have to take some of that weight and let the teachers teach and do everything we can to help them. And that's kind of what we did there. And I'm happy to say that one of those teachers did ask to be transferred to a different school just to do something different for a change. But the rest of them stayed and they've got a whole new, just a new revival, I guess I'll say, for teaching, and are actually helping other teachers now that were kind of going through the same thing. So I just think that's going to be how we're going to get through this, because as you know, I mean, everybody said last year, and I say everybody, I mean, people in the community and parents, oh, aren't you so glad things are back to normal? This was the hardest year in my 34 years for me. Sure, and I was not in a classroom teaching. Now, there were times I had to do some of that because of COVID and a lack of subs and a lack of teachers. We all just do what we have to do. But I just think that we got to be there for our people. We've got to focus on what's important. And I know a lot of people don't like to say we have learning loss, but things are definitely different. And we've got some ground to catch up with. And I'm just really thankful that they still let me stay around all these years when I could have been retired for 4 years, that they let me stay around. And I still love what I do. I get frustrated, I get mad, and after board meetings, I'm like, oh, sometimes, but I love what I do. And that's what I want everybody to feel that way. And if they don't, I feel like it's my job to help them feel that way, or to just help them find something else to do.
Well, you're focusing and you're talking a lot about relationships, and just the other day with my new group, I talked about the fact that yes, we've got to focus on children and creating children's outcomes. But some of the best work we can do right now is making sure that the folks that serve children every day are all right, because our adults have been through a lot. And I didn't even think about, like in your case, I remember you guys were going through I think you named it as the second hurricane.
Florence was our second one, yeah.
I really remember that. And then, like you said, right into COVID and so forth and so on. And this leadership work is certainly not easy. I mean, we've certainly, superintendency, this is my 10th year, and the work has, I would say, intensified certainly in the last 3 to 4 years, just trying to keep things afloat.
It's completely different for me now than when I first started. And I took a weird path here and came from being a high school principal to being superintendent. Very weird path. And I didn't know what I didn't know then, but I know everything that led up to COVID, including the hurricane, didn't really prepare me. To be honest, I remember telling our attorney, I said I would have 2 hurricanes back to back, and I'd rather deal with that than COVID again. He said, did you ever think you'd say that?
Absolutely.
Because we know how to navigate hurricanes and to deal with that. But, when you take a whole entire school and they can't go back for the whole year and you split them up in the other schools, you might have art on a cart and music rolling around, and we had classrooms on the stage in the auditorium, and some in the auditorium, and some, in the cafeterias. We did those kind of things, but we could have school. We didn't have to worry about us. All I kept thinking during COVID was, what if a hurricane comes? Because then what are we going to do? Because we were packed in like sardines. Now what are we going to do? We can't pack in like sardines. So that's why we're hoping to get some money and build us a school out of the flood zone.
There you go. And environment matters. Environment
Very
matters.
much. Very much.
I explained to a gentleman one time who was discouraging us from building the school we just completed in Northeastern North Carolina. And I said to him, just imagine, and I named a local hotel in town. I said, just imagine if you had to move from your house to that hotel and reside there. And, wasn't hating on the hotel, but I was trying to make a point that,
right.
Being in the old school was similar to that, and environment matters. Children are going to do better in an environment that is conducive for learning.
And it goes right back to something you said before. Right. I hate to say this, but those two positions that I just had resigned today, they were both in CTE.
Right.
And I absolutely am positive there's a county near me, and I won't say which one it is, that I could easily recruit from if they had not just built a state-of-the-art, beautiful, brand new high school. Why would they leave that?
Makes a difference.
When I'm going to bring them to a building where they're going to have a lot of work to do just to get ready, because it's an old building. Now we're hoping to change that. We're working really hard, and that goes back to the part I said about the commissioners have to buy in the community, because it is a lot of work and it's a lot of money. One of the reasons why I'm still here after I could have retired, because I want to see that at least started, because it'd be hard for another superintendent to come in and build that momentum. You know how that is.
It is a beautiful feeling, trust me, to get it done and get it over.
I can't imagine. I hope I get to feel that one day.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell you, there's nothing like it. Sure is. So let's say that there is a young Lisa Jackson. Not that you're not young too, but younger. Let's do that. Younger.
Okay, Lisa Jackson.
who is aspiring to be a leader. Somebody who is up and coming, maybe in the classroom, who thinks that they're ready to take that administrative leap. What advice would you give her?
Well, there's my mind's going so many different places right now, because I never intended on going into school administration. Mm-hmm. But when I left the classroom after 11 years and went to the community college, pretty much I thought that was the best kept secret in the world. And I would do that till I retired. It was great. A new superintendent came in and we were on some committees together, and he lured me back. And that's when I was a director in the central office. And, I said that to say, first of all, for all the young Lisa Jacksons that might think they don't want to be in school administration, because I'd look at James Lanier, he was my principal that hired me the whole 11 years. And I thought, I had no idea what he did. I know now that I was a pain in his butt, and I still keep in contact with him. And I said, I'm so sorry for all those times I came to your office and said, do you have a minute, when I know he really didn't, but he acted like he did, because he was building those relationships back in 1989, 90, that whole time frame when I started. And so, you don't know right away, but it is so important to think outside of the box and not to box yourself into these are the things I absolutely have to do, because I never, even once I did get into school administration, again by default, I never wanted to be, superintendent. And when, I had been pretty successful high school principal and our superintendent was retiring, and the board came to me and said, we want you to consider this, and you can do in all the schools what you've done in the high school. And I said, I don't think you know what you're saying, because you don't want me to be the superintendent. You want a gray-haired man in a blue suit or a gray suit that's not going to take selfies and put it on Facebook, because that's just me, and I'm not politically correct, and I know that. And those are all things that you used to see, right, William, as superintendent.
Sure.
And they said, well, maybe we do want to see that change. And I would have to remind them of that every now and then when they say, oh, come on now, Lisa. But, I think you just have to, I don't want to say the old dream big, but, you have to figure out what it is you want to do. Hire the good people. Like I said, don't ever try to be the smartest person in the room at all. And oh my goodness, I think I just told you we had our summer leadership retreat on Monday and Tuesday. And I just sat in the back of the room at one point and just scanned the room and thought, wow, I am so not the smartest person in this room. And I'm just going to take the credit though for all these people being here, because some of them came reluctantly because it might've been they had to cross that bridge, or, what, they were leaving a bigger district with a higher supplement, but now they're not going anywhere. They're here because they know that they can trust me. I am trying to build relationships with them. I think that's important. But, being a female there's not a lot of females in superintendency right now. There's more than there were 7 years ago when I started, for sure. But I'll tell you, people ask me a lot of times, how did that make me feel? I said, well, when I go to superintendent meetings, the line's at the men's room, not the women's room. So that's always a plus, not like when you go to a concert. But I have to say that most all of the superintendents, male or female, just took me under their wing, knowing that I was going to be a very inexperienced, wet behind the ears superintendent, and I needed the help. And some of them are still very good friends of mine. Most of them have retired now because they're probably a little bit smarter than I am, but some of them are still there. And, I just think that, going back to your original question, the best advice I could give is just to go for it, and to always remember the main reason for doing this work. No matter what, every decision you make, it has to be about the children, not about the grown-ups. We do things, for the grown-ups, but it's got to be about the children. And that can even be taking care of ourselves. You mentioned that early on. And, this whole social emotional piece with COVID, and for us with the hurricane, it gets you deep inside, and it was hard. It was all really, really hard. And so, you don't have to work. You can't just worry about the children. You also have to worry about, making sure that the adults are taken care of too. And that, William, is taking care of ourselves too. If that means we stop an hour early so we can walk around the track, or we make sure we're eating right. And that little episode I told you about earlier, I think had to do just as much with what I didn't eat today as it did about the heat and about anything else going on in my body, because I was trying to cram in every last bit of work today that I could, so I could be ready for your show tonight.
And we can't be helpful to others if we don't help ourselves. And look, right. I am the poster child probably for not doing that until I went through my cancer and recovered right. from that and all of that. So now I am much more deliberate, and as all leaders need to be, about taking care of themselves as well. But you mentioned something about being a female in leadership. So let's touch that for a minute.
Okay.
Do you think that maybe I'm stating the obvious, are the challenges different for females, and how so? And then how have you overcome that?
Well, I will say this. Early on, I had some female superintendents and some that were recently retired female superintendents that did say to me, this is going to be a tough job, and people are going to think you can't do it, and never let anybody see you cry. If you're going to cry, you slam the door and cry behind the door. And then I'm going to be totally honest. And some of my female superintendents colleagues might say, what is wrong with you? I have never felt like I was treated any different than anybody. I really haven't. I know that's what a lot of people do think. I feel like my board knows that, they call me a great crisis manager because of all the things I have had to deal with. I do, I think I work really well under pressure, and typically I don't think people think a woman can. And it may be because, I'm different. I don't know, but I've never felt like anyone treated me any differently because I'm a female. And I know that's not normal, but if anyone does feel that way, I would just, you got to keep going. You got to keep doing the work. And if you've got to work twice as hard, it sounds terrible, to prove that you Can't, or if you do have to slam that door and cry behind the door, do it. Do it. And I've done that. I'm going to be honest. I have done that. It's been tough. It's been really tough. I've been right there with the best of them. I try not to, they say complain. What is it? Complain up, not down. And so who do we complain to besides the chairman of the board? And you don't want to do that.
Right.
So I got a dog, which is down here, so I complain to him. He doesn't tell anybody, so it works. But I'm thankful for the opportunity. I really thought my board had lost their mind. I had 4 years before I could retire when they offered me a 4-year contract for the superintendency. And I thought, great, I'll do these 4 years and then I'll, retire and do some contract work and I'll be great. I love what I do. I love Pamlico County. I love Pamlico County schools. I love everything it represents. It's a great place to live and work. It just is.
And that's the best place to be in as a leader, when you are
Yep.
where you can do that work and enjoy the work that you do and fulfill those passions. And it's certainly great to hear you, to see you. I already knew this, but it's great for our audience to know how passionate you are about the work that you do every day. So let's talk a little bit about the future of education. Where do you see public school education going now in the next few years?
Well, I worry about, teacher recruitment, obviously. And I saw, I don't know, I guess it was a tweet somewhere, but it was about the new pathways, to licensure, and people were complaining and they were saying, how about make things better for our teachers? And then we don't have to license people that aren't teachers. And I 100% agree with that. Yes, we welcome, others into the profession. I certainly think we need all of them. Some of the best teachers I have were, came in lateral entry. They truly did. But, at our leadership retreat, my finance officer went over the new salary scale and, everybody was so proud and so excited over it. But it's still sad. It is sad. And I'm thankful that we have an increase. I'm sad for the people that are in that range where they're not getting much. And there's a lot of years in there. And it's just sad because, we want the experience. We want to keep the people here that have, that experience and knowledge of education. And we've got to reward those people. And that's why we used to have a set supplement and we changed it to a percentage, which it was 8% this past year. And now we've moved it to 11%. Unless you're in a hard to fill area, we moved it to 15 because of these sign-in bonuses. We didn't want them to get all mad. So the more years you have, the higher your supplement is, just hoping to reward them a little bit too. But I think that's going to be the case. And I think going back to what I said earlier about, not putting so much on teachers so that they can teach. And I think 100% we're all going to have a grow our own type of program in our districts. Folks in our schools right now that are tutors or teachers or even custodians or bookkeepers that have been in these schools, they know these kids, doing everything we can to encourage them either financially or just, morally, mentally, helping them go back to school. We're going to have to do that. That's our captive audience right now. And we've had that happen. We had a bookkeeper. I know everybody has a lot of teacher assistants and custodians and ones like that. We had a bookkeeper that went back to school. And, the cool thing was her years counted, for her retirement. And she taught. Matter of fact, she's a retired teacher now back helping us. I think that's another thing. I think we need to remove that cap on what retired teachers can make, because right now they're saving me in a whole lot of areas, filling in some gaps and things. And they're the ones that, they've got the experience. They know how to do math the old way. And the things that, we're trying to do to help these kids get back on track and to get caught up and to try to, close that gap from all these crises that we've been dealing with. I had someone say to me, actually someone on the board said to me, I'm really surprised you decided to sign another contract, because this is probably the last really good year that we're going to have, because it's going to just get worse from here. And I went, oh my gosh, that's off. If that's what someone in that position thinks, then I got to stay, because
Yeah.
we can't let that happen to this county that I've been in for 34 years.
Too much at stake. Too much at stake.
That's
Trying
right.
to
We're talking about
make sure.
children.
That's right.
Children.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, and yet I bet that opinion is not the only opinion that's like this. So we just got to make sure that we
No.
keep plugging ahead and make sure that we keep having those conversations
Right.
that are about improving
That's right.
outcomes for children, for sure. I thought about something that you said, and it sparked something that I've been kind of on the train about. This whole thing about certification, teacher certification, and I'm not anti-teacher certification. I understand why we have to have it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want us to think about and consider the fact that sometimes supervisors' input ought to count a little bit more than it does right now with the certification process. And here's what I mean by that. If we are talking about working at a bank, or working in manufacturing, or working for a tech firm, people are generally on the probation for a period of time. And then at some point, the supervisor signs off on a document that then clears the person to be, certifiable or what have you. We're the only profession that you can take classes, you can, jump through all kinds of hoops to become a more certified person. And then if you don't pass that test, or you don't complete one course, then you find yourself looking for a job very soon. So I just think that, not saying that we need to do away with those things,
right?
But certainly if you have been successful in a classroom, especially in this day and time, for a year or two, and the principal says this person is a good teacher, or the superintendent signs off on this person is a good teacher, I just think that ought to count towards getting some of these folks certified that we're missing out on right now.
Absolutely. I 100%.
You didn't say that, I did, but that's my opinion.
It's fine. I agree. I think if we don't think, again, outside of the box.
Outside of the box, that's right.
Because, I just said earlier, you can go to our website and see that we don't have that many openings for a small district, though. I mean, we're not going to have that many. We don't have that many positions. But if you go and look, I look at my neighboring counties, and then, there was the big tweet recently about in Wright County. These are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I forgot the number. It was, 1,700 or whatever openings right now in North Carolina. School starts in a month. Sure. A month from tomorrow, I think, for most of us. Yeah. So I just can't imagine that many kids in North Carolina are going to start school with a sub or no teacher at all. I mean, I don't know. It's scary. And unless something changes, that's not going to change.
Yeah. A month sounds good, Lisa. I have 2 weeks in South Carolina.
Oh, that's right. You're in South Carolina.
That's
right.
Wow. That's right. Yeah, we're August 15th, but anyway.
Oh, wow.
And the same kind of challenges. They're
how large is your district?
15,000 students.
Wow.
Yeah.
I want to come visit sometime. When you get your legs under you and all that, I'd love to come visit.
You've got to do that. You've got to do that. Ms. Jackson, hold on with me for a minute and we'll come back and close out the show. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
I just want to thank each of you for the amazing response that we've had to the Wright experience. We're about at a year and a half now, about 18 months that we have been providing this show. And I'm just thrilled every time I look at our viewership and some of the comments that you leave us and so forth and so on. My commitment is to continue to bring you the most amazing guests that I can find. As you see tonight, another very passionate, visionary leader who's done some amazing work at her school district for many years and is excited about the future of education. We know that good leadership requires latching on to those who are doing the work so that we all can get better. Starting next month in August and even into September, we're booking leaders now. Next month in August, you will hear from leaders all across the southeastern United States. We have leaders at the higher ed level. We're going to have a superintendent from Virginia, another one from North Carolina. And then the following month, we're going to have some leaders from the state of South Carolina, as well as other places. So an amazing lineup of leaders will continue to be coming forth. And I'm just privileged that I've been given this vision to do this show and to do it at this level. And already the folks where I'm working in the great county of Sumter, South Carolina, are in support of the work that we're doing, and I'm thankful for that. And so as we continue to build this brand called the Wright Experience, we just hope and continue to seek for approval from you, the viewers, that you're enjoying the content that we're bringing. And we ask that you continue to keep educators in mind for this work that educators are doing now in today's schools is unlike any time period before. We don't have playbooks for the work that we're doing right now. And I know Dr. Jackson can attest to that with me, my superintendent colleague. Every day now, when teachers are going into school and when students are going into our schools, we first of all are focused on the safety, making sure that environment is safe. But then additionally, we want to make sure that we are providing education. And this education now is different, ladies and gentlemen. It is not like it used to be. And so for us to be successful, we need to make sure that we are continuing to move the needle forward to prepare these young folks for a world that is different than it's ever been before. And so just thank you for allowing me to be able to have this content and bring it to you. And my friend, Miss Jackson over there in Pamlico County, I just appreciate you and your leadership and the wonderful things that you're doing. And thank you for agreeing to be a part of the Wright Experience.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's been a great experience. And thank you for what you do for all of us across several states now. And I'd like to say condolences to your family as well. Having just lost a parent myself, I understand that, unfortunately, but condolences to your family. Please tell your wife.
Thank you very much. And to the Wright Experience audience, thank you and good evening.